Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Republic of Old Souls media channel. We are live, so if you're watching us on any of the social media channels, we're glad to have you with us. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about this upcoming webinar on Saturday, which is Solving the Cost of Living Crisis webinar. People are struggling right now. We all know what the cost of living is looking like at the moment. I mean, Ian, we've got thousands of families, watching possibly right now who feel like they're working harder than ever before. Their bank accounts are empty by the 25th of the month. People are robbing Peter to pay Paul. Before we get into the kind of technical side of things on Saturday, can you explain just from a layman's perspective, why these hardworking parents aren't failing? Because many of them feel like they are, aren't they? But they're actually just trapped in a rigged game.
Well, that's exactly what it is. And, a lot of people are unaware that there is an agenda, and it's been running along for many centuries, actually. But it's starting to accelerate a little bit. David Icke's been talking about it for 35 years. Max Egan, about 30 years. Alex Jones has been talking about it about 15, 20 years. And of course, the majority of the world just thinks they're crazy conspiracy theorists, that their world, the world that they're in, their lifestyle, their circle that they're in, they don't see this agenda that's running along. Then you get UN Agenda 2030 coming in, and of course the mainstream media and the pundits will tell you that this is all fantastic because it's going to save the planet, sustainable goals. We should all be celebrating the fact that UN Agenda 2030 is all about restoring and retaining the planet's life, all life on the planet and all these types of things. Of course, that's what they're selling us, and then they're selling us with, well, we need digital ID because allegedly there's all these terrorists and there's all of these immigrants coming in from everywhere, so we need digital ID so that we can, protect everybody. And, so the sales pitch and the agenda, if you don't know, if you haven't done your research, it looks like all of these things that they're doing are for the benefit of mankind. Well, one of the big things that they've been doing for a long time is the digital concentration camp. Now, when I was a young boy, you could go down the shop with your pocket money or your few coins that you had that you may have made on your paper round, and you could go and buy things in the shop. Well, if you ask youngsters today, what you're going to do with how you're going to go and buy anything, they're going to say, or on my phone or on my card. So we've all been moved away from coin and notes into this digital system, and that's all very deliberate. If it's all digital, and if everyone's got an app on their phone or a card, or they're doing everything in terms of bank transfers, etc., bank transactions, then you're stuck in the digital concentration camp. So what's going on is that they've trapped us in this digital concentration camp, whilst at the same time giving everybody the illusion, making them believe that they own things on the Monopoly Board of Commerce, whilst at the same time increasing the cost of living by inflating the cost of things. So you have inflation, which is a lot higher than any of the governments are telling us. You've got inflation rising, and that's the cost of goods and services is going up. And then you've got people's wages and their profits and their revenues that they're getting in aren't going up in line with inflation. So you've gradually squeezing everyone, and the only way they can operate is through this digital system, which will gradually be so tracked and traced that it'll be virtually impossible to do what you want with what you've got. You'll be forced into doing what the controllers want, what the cabal wants you to do, because the only way you can do anything eventually will be through a digital system, except for what we provide, where we provide an exit from that and a way around that. But basically, it's a deliberate plan. I don't like this analogy, but it's a bit like boiling a rat. You know, you put it in a cold pan, you gradually turn the gas up, it gets warm, then it gets a bit hotter, get hotter and hotter and hotter. It takes forever. And then basically when it's too late, you're boiled alive. And that's what they're doing in the economy all around the world. There's no country that I know of that isn't on the same trajectory. It's all gradually going in that direction. There's wars everywhere, which is going to cause them to come in with their even more need for surveillance, even more need for digital currency and all that sort of thing. So to me, it's very obvious. As David Icke says, if you know what the agenda is, you don't have to be Nostradamus to predict what may happen next, because you've already got the agenda. You already know what they're doing. So it's just a question, when are they going to do it? And we're seeing all of these events unfolding all around us. And the digital concentration camp and the inflation, which of course, all these prices going up, oil, you know, the wars are restraining oil and gas and all that kind of thing. And that has a knock-on effect to everything else. So prices are going up and up and up and up. But people's revenues, their wages, their profits from their business aren't going up and up. And gradually that gap is, you know, closing down, where most people's revenues are going to be below their costs. And that's where they want it. That's where they want the world to be. Right.
Now you talk about the monopoly board. You often say the world that we live in is like this giant game of Monopoly that's been in bankruptcy since 1933. Again, in simple terms, you know, what happened with House Joint Resolution 192? We talk about HJR 192 a lot. And how does that historical event, how does that explain why money of substance has been replaced by this system of perpetual debt that we're all sort of forced to play in today?
Well, the controllers, the cabal, wanted a system that would only 1 in a million, as Mandel House said, would actually figure out how it works. So you've got a system where in 1933, because of the bankruptcy of the United States, which is well documented in HJR 192, House Joint Resolution 192, they basically took out a mortgage over all of the assets and all of the energy of the people. And what everyone is doing, without realizing, is that they are playing a game of Monopoly. So the living man woman is not on the Monopoly board. The living man woman is the agent for a player piece. The player piece is the citizen, the person. That citizen person is the piece that goes round and round the Monopoly board with the illusion of ownership of assets like your car, your house, your business, your stocks and shares, your pension. All of these things actually have no value whatsoever. They all have a zero value. They have a perceived value, and you can buy and sell them on the Monopoly board to someone else. But when you boil it right down, because the cabal, the controllers, have taken a mortgage out over all the assets and over the energy of all the people, everything on that Monopoly board is just digital ledgers. There's no money. There's no money of substance. You can't pick it up. You can't look at it. It's just artificial. It's just digital ledgers of basically of debt ledgers, because everything on that Monopoly board is debt. Everything is a negative. So you get a bill in the post and it doesn't have a negative value in front of the bill. You look in your bank account, it doesn't have a negative value in front of the numbers, the digits that you've got in your bank account. But everything on the Monopoly board is negative because it's all debt based. The whole world economy is based on debt. So if everything's based on debt, and if everything on the Monopoly board is mortgaged, you don't own it. You only have the use of it, a quittable title. You can use it, but you can never own it. So what they've done is they've tricked the whole of humanity into believing that they own assets, that there's money, that you can pay for things. You can do what you want when you want to do it, if you've got the money to do it with. It's all an illusion. There's nothing other than artificial debt ledgers on the monopoly board. We're all the living men and women. We put our energy on the board, which I've explained many times in previous interviews. And, you know, we leave it on the board, abandoned, basically. But what we've got the opportunity to do is to take it back from the board. And that's one of the main things that we offer our envoys and our members.
Well, let's talk about that as well, because I know you're going to cover this on Saturday. You know, your signature as Secret Wealth. I think that, you know, this is one that shocks most people. Certainly shocked me when I learned about this. You know, you claim that when we sign for a car loan or a mortgage or whatever it is, credit card, that the bank isn't actually doing us a favor. You know, they're monetizing our energy effectively is what they're doing. So how is a family's or a person's signature actually the credit that creates the money in the first place? And then where is that energy being traded after we've signed the papers?
Well, I like to use this example. So imagine that you were at a dinner party, and the dinner party, all the people at the table you were at, you were invited along for some sort of networking event, and they were all bankers at the table. So you said to them, "Oh, you know, what do you guys do?" "Oh, we're all bankers." "Oh, okay, fine. How does your bank work?" "Well, it's easy, isn't it? You know, we take in deposits from our customers and we lend them out." And you know, and you might think, "Well, that sounds perfectly reasonable. I can totally understand that. They take in a deposit and then they lend out deposits that they've collected from their customers. Makes perfect sense, yeah." But what they don't tell you is that those deposits that you make into the bank are signatures. It's not a transfer of money from somewhere else.
No,
it's a signature. So the signature creates credit. The banks take it in as if it were a deposit, and they put it on their balance sheet as an asset, and then they match it with a liability. So you've got an asset coming in, which is the signature, and then you've got a matching liability on the other side of the bank's balance sheet, which is a debt. And it's the debt that you see in your account. It's not the signature, it's the debt instrument, it's the debt security that you see in the account. And whether that's if you're putting a deposit in for your current bank account, or whether you're signing for a loan, a mortgage, or a credit card, it's your signature is depositing an asset, and then the bank is matching it with an equal value but negative liability. And it's that liability, that security, which they're selling to their friends in Wall Street. And then their friends in Wall Street, the investment banks, are what they call hypothecating it. They are using it as a sort of tool, if you like, to leverage it right up and to trade even more money. But it's not really money, it's just more debt, to make more and more profit, which isn't really profit because it's all negative. And that's what's going on the monopoly board. So the source of all of that energy is coming through the signature of all the men and women out there, through the birth certificate construct, which is the person, the citizen, some people say the straw man. It is this artificial entity. That entity is a banker under the Bills of Exchange Act 1882. It's the signature that is creating all this credit. That is your secret wealth. Because if you know that you've put the energy on the board and that energy has now become debt, who does it belong to? It belongs to you, because you put it there. You are the originator of the energy. You transferred the energy that became a debt. The banks traded it. It's all owed back to you. That's your secret wealth, is the fact that you put the energy on the monopoly board and you can get it back.
In the first place. Gotcha. You also spoke a moment ago about abandoning that credit. So the credit or the energy that we created, that you abandon it. And you know, when it comes to the webinar on Saturday, I know you're going to reveal something called the 945 tax return secret. For someone who's never ever heard of anything, you know, to do with this construct, you know, an international grant or trust, for example, how can a normal person use this construct, this 98 series structure, to identify the credit that they've unknowingly abandoned over the years into the system, and then bring it back into their family?
Well, it's all about nominees. So on the Monopoly Board of Commerce, this artificial monopoly board, the banks are operating as nominees for the true creditors. So a nominee is like a trustee, a fiduciary. It all really means the same thing. The banks, where you make that deposit, you use a signature to create the deposit. The deposit is then matched it's an asset, but it's matched with an equal but opposite liability. The banks are trading that liability as the nominee for the true creditor. So you see what happens is when you make the deposit through the signature, at the moment that you make the signature, and you don't, by the way, need a pen and sign a bit of paper to make a signature. It can be digital. It's all based on an intention. So once you've made that signature, you've transferred the energy onto the monopoly board, then basically you've abandoned it. You are the true creditor. The living man, woman is always the creditor for the energy, the creator. In the law, he who creates owns, right? So you own that energy. It comes from you. You put it on the monopoly board and you put it in trust, really, because the banks are operating as nominees, trustees, fiduciaries of your energy. They use it.
Right.
The clearing banks, that's the banks in the high street or the banks online, you give it to them. Basically, you deposit it with them. They use it to create matching liabilities. They sell those matching liabilities, which are debt securities, to the investment banks in New York. The investment banks trade it. It's your energy, but both the clearing bank and the investment banks are using it as nominees for the true creditor, as fiduciaries, as trustees. Because it's not theirs, they presume that you're never going to claim it back. They use it. They pay taxes on it to the United States Treasury, which is what the 945 tax module is. The investment banks are paying taxes for the use of your energy as the presumed nominee for you. Well, you don't claim it. That's abandoned. When you make a claim through, and you can't make a claim directly, you have to do it through a nominee. So you create a nominee. A nominee is a grantor trust. It's an international grantor trust. You create that grantor trust as the nominee that is going to correct the record. It now says that the true creditor has now arrived and wants to make a claim against the energy that the banks have been using as the presumed nominees. Well, now the real nominees turned up through a grantor trust structure, is going to file tax returns and correct the record so that the grantor trust is the actual nominee for the true creditor, which is the living man, woman, as the beneficiary of the grantor trust. That corrects the record. Now the taxes that the presumed nominees, the investment banks typically, are paying to the Treasury, United States Treasury, those taxes now belong to the grantor trust as the actual nominee for the real creditor. Right. It's called the holder in due course. So you're just redirecting taxes back to the entity that is now the actual creditor, nominee, and the actual creditor is the beneficiary of the grantor trust. It's a redirection and a correction.
Right. Okay. So it's not the actual money that left your account. It's the taxes paid on the money that they're using. Basically, that's what you're saying. And as long as you've got that structure in place, you can pull that abandoned tax back into your grantor trust. Yeah.
The monopoly board works on debt and tax. It's basically the whole monopoly board it's on registration of assets. So legal title stays with those that run the board. Equitable title is given to the citizens, the person, the straw man, and then you've got debt and tax. And that, if you just knew those three things, registration, debt, and tax, study those, understand, comprehend what's going on with them, and you've pretty much figured out a majority of the monopoly board.
Wow. Okay. Now let's say that somebody did that, and they were reclaiming what was rightfully theirs. You also talk, and we hear a lot about this great taking, don't we? The push for digital ID, own nothing and be happy, all of these different phrases that we've heard. You're talking about building an asset fortress, a social shield for families. What does that mean? What does that mean for a family to hold their home in fee simple title, for example? How does that protect their lifestyle from the state interference or this jurisdictional overreach that people are concerned about these days?
Well, the majority of the world's population have what they think are their assets registered to the monopoly board, to the controllers, to the cabal. They have things like cars, houses, businesses, investment portfolios, cryptocurrency portfolios, all of these things. And if you look at the title holder is always most of the time, the majority of the time, the title holder is the citizen, the person, the birth certificate construct, the straw man. So you've got an entity that is artificial that has the title to what we think are assets, but they're not actually assets because the legal title of those so-called assets is already registered to the controllers, those that run the monopoly board, the cabal. So it's all an illusion, right? So if you want to take more control of what we believe to be assets, you've got to remove them. You've got to replace the title. That's the person, citizen, straw man title, title holder. You've got to replace that title holder with another title holder. Well, the other title, the title holder that I'm talking about is an asset fortress. It is an international trust that holds the title to the car, the house, the business, the stocks and shares, anything that can be transferred. The equitable title can be transferred from the citizen to the asset fortress. Now, the asset fortress that is operating in an international jurisdiction, it's not operating in the country that you're living in, it's international. It holds the title, the equitable title to the assets for the benefit of the living man, woman who is the beneficiary. And that asset fortress also has its own bank account, so it can operate as a treasury. It's critically important. You do not want to have your all of your spending and your lifestyle constrained by the digital ID constraints that are going to come in everywhere. So you don't use the bank accounts that are connected to the citizen or the person. You use the bank account that's connected to the asset fortress as an individual and a trust that's got its own international jurisdiction with its own bank account. So you can use the bank card, the bank account of that trust, asset fortress, as a private treasury without having to be constrained by digital ID. It's a huge solution that very few people are comprehending.
No, that is huge. Finally, Ian, you've kind of teased this concept called spend and recoupment cycle, or the spend and recoupment cycle. Is it truly possible for households to move into a private treasury, where the cost of living effectively drops down to zero because every expenditure becomes a new credit creation event? Can you give us maybe just a glimpse into how that infinite loop works so that people can understand how they literally can reduce cost of living down to zero?
Well, yeah, it starts with identifying what energy you've already put on the monopoly board. So that might be bank payments from the age of 18. It could be mortgages, loans, credit cards, the face value of those loans, credit cards, and mortgages. You are the originator of all of those. Your energy originated all of those. Bank payments, mortgage face value, loan face value, credit card face value, even the deductions from your wages, the tax deductions are basically your signature created those because there's an intention for you to fund that deduction. So you add all those things up for past years. You can then recoup that. You're not recouping the mortgage face value as a security. You're recouping the taxes that the investment banks are paying for using your energy that created the mortgage in the first place. So let's suppose, to make it easy numbers, that there is a $1 million recoupment of all of that past energy. Now, for many people, it's a lot more than that, but let's just use a $1 million example. So your grantor trust is recouping $1 million of taxes from the United States Treasury, not from the banks, from the United States Treasury. They're redirecting taxes to your grantor trust that is rightfully now the holder in due course. It's the rightful nominee of the credit of the taxes that have come back. You then operate with that in your Asset Fortress protocol, and your Asset Fortress protocol issues signature via signature credit, because there's an intention. The grantor of the Asset Fortress is the provider of the signature. It's the conduit for the signature. It spends $1 million on or anything in digital in the digital banking world, and that then that spending, as people would want to probably refer to it, is new signature credit being put back on the monopoly board, which can then be recouped in the same way as the original credit from the age of 18 has been recouped. The credit, the tax is on the credit, the tax is on the energy. It's infinity. You push it out, recoup it, push it out, recoup it. It's an infinity model.
Wow. So people, essentially what you're saying here is people have the ability to, depending on their age, I guess, recoup a lifetime's worth of tax that was paid on their credit energy, and then use that within a 12-month period for lifestyle, purchasing a home, whatever it may be they want to do, and then recoup that the following year and just keep recycling that same process over and over and over again. I mean, that's life-changing, to be fair. I know that's a term that's often sort of pundited around a bit, but it genuinely is, isn't it, when you think about that?
When you realize that the energy you've already put on the monopoly board can be recouped through tax, you're not recouping the actual securities or the bank payments or the actual mortgage. You're not going to the bank saying, hey, give me back my bank payments or give me back the face value of the mortgage. You're not doing that. No. The United States Treasury is collecting anywhere between $50 and $100 billion a year in taxes that belong back to the people. And all they've got to do is correct the record through a grantor trust with the right tax filings, and all of that tax is redirected back to where it originated from. The energy comes back through tax recoupment. And that's what our model does. You're not recouping from the bank. You're not recouping from the government or anything like that. It makes no difference to them whatsoever. All you're doing is redirecting the taxes that are already being funded by the investment banks who are using your energy. You're redirecting those taxes from the United States Treasury into your grantor trust so that you can use it. And now you can spend and recoup in those cycles using the energy you've already put on the monopoly board, which means that you don't need to put new energy on the board. You don't need to go and work 60-hour weeks, run yourself down to the ground running your business, because you've already got that energy. If you think of it like a monopoly board and you've got a stack of chips, you've already got that stack of chips because you've just recouped them. Now you use them on the board. Everything, every chip you put on the board, you get back again. You put it back on the board, it comes back to you. You don't need to create new chips on the monopoly board. You've already created them.
That's incredible. And I think for anybody watching this, you know, if you're doesn't matter where you're at in life, you know, if you're a family, if you're a mum, if you're a dad, if you're a single parent, you know, there's so many people that are doing exactly what you've just said. They're continuously putting new chips onto the board, and those chips are piling up over the years, and they're never reclaiming what is rightfully theirs. So if you're watching this, guys, and you want to do a real deep dive on this, then that is what we are going to be doing this Saturday at 10 a.m. UK time. So that will be Saturday, the 11th of April, 10 a.m. UK time. Ian's going to be doing a deep dive on how to solve the cost of living crisis. We have registration links where people can go and register for that webinar on Saturday. We'll be pushing those out on social media. We'll be pushing those out on our Telegram channel if you're in the Telegram channel as well. If you're in your members area and you feel that other people would benefit from this, I don't know who wouldn't, to be honest with you. So if you've got friends, family, other people that you know could benefit from this information, then, and you're a member here of our private members association at the Republic of Old Souls, you will have a link that you can pass out to other people. The more people, the more families that we can help, the stronger we become as a nation here at the Republic of Old Souls. And that is our goal, the freedom plan. We want everybody to be able to feel that freedom, whether it be just waking up in the morning, having some peace of mind and a little bit more serenity than maybe they have right now, because they're not under the pressure of having to continually put those chips on the board when it's just not even necessary. So one more time, 11th of April, 10 a.m. UK time, how to solve the cost of living crisis. Ian, any final words before we let the audience go?
Well, for those people who really want to, get into the detail, then, that I write research papers at Ecclesia Law Institute. I've written many papers about recouping signature credit, the taxes on signature credit. If you really want to get your head deeply into it, there's a paper I've written just recently, which is signature credit. Could it win the Nobel Prize? Because somebody said to me, "Wow, Ian, this how you've put all this together, maybe you should put it forward for a Nobel Prize." And I'll let you judge that if you go and read the paper as to whether you think it deserves it.
Perfect. Well, Ian, thank you so much for coming on today. Looking forward to the deep dive on Saturday as well. And we hope to see you all there with us. For now, have a great day, and we will see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye now.